We're now going to continue with the texturing process, and this video will be about the internal so-called curtain layer that we've created in the last video. So to get right into it, let's create a new material in V-Ray, and let's go and call this one curtains. Now I'm going to add a diffuse here, which is the diffuse for the curtains. Or at least this is actually taken from a nighttime shot. I believe it's in New York. Any nighttime shot will work just fine. And again, just how I explained the process in the last video is I go and take a image that I find in a photo. This one's quite blurry, but that's absolutely fine for our purposes. And I go and just Photoshop by cropping it out and aligning it horizontally and vertically. Now notice here that these parts here are black, and that's going to be really helpful because we can now take exactly that same material and we can go and copy it down to our opacity slot right down here below. So let's just go and make a copy there, and let's paste that into opacity. We can make a copy just in case we want to change it later. So that actually allows us, without really making a separate opacity map being black and white, allows us to use the same material thanks to that dark line there. So this gives us a material with some indication of lights inside with most of the parts missing, just to give us this random effect. Now if we had to apply this material as is to our internal curtain layer, we won't really get much light coming through. So to get the light, what we want to do is to create a new material, a V-Ray material wrapper, and we can create that in a new slot. And this can be called curtains with light. And here you can go and create a base material which is either literally a V-Ray light material, and then you can add opacity to that just to block out some of the areas. We're going to just drag in our material that we created earlier on. And what we can do here is under the GI global illumination slot, we can add a value of about 3, 5. You can ramp it up to 10 if you like. And this will give us very, very small amount of glow to this material, however gentle. As I mentioned, if you do want to have much more light coming through, then just go and replace this with a V-Ray light material. So here we don't really need to change anything. We've done it all. If you do like, you can go down into your output and you can add more brightness to it if you need to, or you can make those changes in Photoshop, whichever you feel more comfortable using. So let's go ahead and apply that material to our model. And let's also go and select this to be shown in our textured scene. So now we want to isolate that, and we want to add a UV just like we did the last time. UV, enter, box, bitmap fit, and let's select that. So here again we just want to align this so that we get one layer of windows per floor. I'm not going to spend too long adjusting this, so we can move quickly past this stage. And here you'll see already the effect that you get. If you want to have a completely unique effect, you could go and make one huge texture where you kind of randomize everything. So it's up to you as to how big you want to go. I like to keep my textures small and quick rendering, so we'll leave it at that. Let's close this down and exit out. So already we have one of the towers now, which we will later see in a render preview with those two materials in place. Now the only area where we will create a similar type of material is in the retail facade down below. So I'm quickly going to do that, and then the rest of the materials will be more or less basic V-Ray materials, so we won't harbor on that too long. So here again, let's go and do the same thing that we did before. Let's delete the top and the bottom. This is going to be our glass object, and let's create another material here, or another layer rather, and let's call this 02 is what our podium is on, so we're going to call this let's create one called retail glass. another called retail frames, another called retail inside. So I created 3 materials or 3 layers, and I will then individually create materials for those objects, all derived from this original spline that we generated in CAD earlier. So we extruded it, added editable poly, and what we're going to do now is this will be the glass layer. So to start off, let's add it to the glass layer here. I generally like to add a tessellate modifier to each of my glass objects. Operate on squares, no tension, just so that I can see the actual glass planes having this little crosshair there. And then I like to give a 1 centimeter shell, just so that the refraction and reflection through it is looking correct. Then we will create a glass material for it. So we can call this glass. We know that it's V-Ray. Diffuse can be pure black. Can have slight reflection to it. Refraction we drop right down. And we can apply that. Then we can immediately go and make materials for the inside. So let's copy the curtain material that we had for the towers, and we're going to call this retail inside. And instead of the curtain texture, we're going to choose one which has our retail facade, and that is going to be this one. Now this, just like the other textures, is one that is taken from an internal photo, and it's just to give us the impression of some busyness happening on the inside of the building. I can actually delete the opacity here. We don't need that. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a copy of this, and we can actually go ahead and, instead of manipulating it on this level, we can go right down to the original spline at the bottom, and we can offset that using the outline. Minus 0.5 should be good enough. Press delete so you get rid of the original outside line. Re-extrude it up, redo the editable poly. You can keep the tessellate on, no problem there. You can delete the shell, don't need that. And you can apply that material to it. And then just apply a UV. Box, bitmap fit, same process as always. And select your retail. Now in your front view, we just want to press R, scale this down. And you'll notice that the texture I used is for a 2-story building, since that is what we're working with here. We want to get it round about there, just to show those 2 levels of retail. Now for the outside, we want to, before we do that actually, let's add this to a retail inside layer. And to create the outside frames, what we're going to do, instead of just having pure glass, let's go Control V and make a copy of that outside glass layer. And then instead of shell and tessellate, we can delete those 2, and we can go and add, we can do this in 2 ways. Either you can select all of the polys, this is my preferred way, and by selecting Control A, then just go Insert by Polygon, and then here just choose the width or half width of your window frame. Let's say we want 10 centimeter window frame, so we're going to go 0.05, enter, go, and then on your keyboard hit delete. And now that you have your window frame, all you need to do is add a shell modifier, and let's do a 5 centimeter thick in the front and 5 centimeter on both sides. And in your material editor, let's create a frame material, which we can actually use for all other frames around the buildings. So we'll call this one frames, and you'll just see how quickly and easily I make these materials without adding any particular complexity. A tiny bit of reflection, and let's drop this down to, let's say, 0.75. Now this will be my frame material that I will use all around. So in this video, what we've done is we've finished doing the inner curtain material for the towers, and we've also gone and done the entire retail facade in its most quick working form. So in these last, what was it, 5 minutes, we have done the entire building's frames, we've done the glass, we've done the retail on the inside, and you don't really need to spend more time than that ever doing these type of conceptual model facades. That is basically how it is done on the quick workflow side of things. And if you want to get into more detail then on the further down as the project evolves, then you will go and delete this curtain material and you'll go and start modeling some of the internal interior scenes if that is the case. So that is it for this video. The next one will cover some more of the texturing on the rest of the building, and after we are done with that, we can start getting to the final sections of this entire tutorial.